This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First, though, our top stories this evening. The Supreme Court has ruled that the government must consult MPs before starting the process of leaving the European Union. Ministers say they will bring a bill within days. Research seen exclusively by Sky News suggests people who eat seafood are absorbing tiny pieces of plastic into their bloodstream with unknown effects on their health. And nearly £8 million was wiped off the stock market value of BT today after it revealed the true cost of an accounting scandal in its Italian business. Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. In the next half hour then, we will see what's making the headlines. One story dominating, I have to say, with the editor of the Times literary supplement, Stig Abel, and the documentary maker and journalist Jenny Kleeman. You're laughing because...
No, I sighed because it's one story, it's Brexit. I thought in the manner of...
One story for years, that's the problem,
Shall we do it in the manner of La La Land? We could do it as a musical.
You could, yeah. I won't be.
Let's do the next half hour in the manner of a musical.
Front pages. The Metro, I'm going to stop him there, leads with the Supreme Court's decision that MPs must be given a vote on the logistics of Brexit. The Times calls today's decision a blow to ministers. The Eye quotes lead claimant Gina Miller as saying politicians have behaved despicably. The Financial Times reports that it will force Theresa May to table emergency legislation in order to keep her timetable for Brexit on track. The Express focuses on Brexit Secretary David Davis's plea to MPs not to stand in the way of any such bill. There can be no turning back, says the Telegraph's top story, as it highlights the ways in which Mrs May's political opponents might try to stop her. The Guardian reports that rebel Tory MPs are demanding more of a role in determining whether the UK will remain a part of the European single market. Meanwhile, the Daily Mirror highlights what it calls the national epidemic of drivers using mobile phones while at the wheel. And The Star has a story concerning the death of Michael Jackson, as told by his daughter. So Stig and Jenny are here. Where should we start? Let's guess, with Brexit. You've chosen the Daily Telegraph. There can be no turning back.
Yes. So the Supreme Court ruling today means that there's going to have to be a vote in Parliament. And, I mean, although Gina Miller has been very magnanimous about it and has been saying, she has, I think, today, and has been saying, you know, this isn't about politics, this is about the rule of law being followed. I think it wouldn't be unfair to say that when this case was brought, it was about trying to turn back Brexit. It was about trying to find a loophole, and this idea that if it could be shown that MPs needed to have a vote, if there was the political will to vote against triggering Article 50, we could reverse the Brexit vote, but that's not really going to happen because there is no way that there will be a majority of MPs who want that now. It's amazing how much things have changed, actually, since October, how much people's kind of appetites for things have changed. But the verdict today is a good thing. It's a good thing for the country. If we're going to leave the European Union, we need to do it in the right way. We need to do it according to the law.
Is that because we've now heard Theresa May set out her stall, that the government has used the time between appealing the High Court decision and the Supreme Court to actually work out what it means by Brexit?
It never should have appealed. And actually,
but it gave itself time. It actually has used that time.
It's a borderline scandal that it's taken millions of pounds of public money to appeal a decision which has resulted in them doing what they're going to do anyway. Theresa May had already said, I'm going to put this to Parliament. We all know that MPs, generally speaking, and correctly so, are not going to stand in the way of Brexit. So we're going to have a vote. We were always going to have a vote. We are now going to have a vote. Now, the politicking that will follow is kind of interesting. Labour, as we know, are in a colossally difficult position. I saw a statistic which was interesting, which is that the Labour Party members, 2/3 of them voted Remain. Labour Party constituencies, 2/3 of them voted Brexit. So Labour is absolutely torn down the middle on this. And Jeremy Corbyn, its leader, its hapless leader, is in an unenviable position anyway. So what can he reasonably do? And what we'll actually see happen in Parliament is, I suspect the government will put forward a bill the shortest it could possibly imagine. Almost a one-sentence bill going, I fancy a bit of Brexit. And then there'll be attempts to lodge various amendments, which generally speaking will be voted down because most MPs will correctly see they can't stand in the will
Not
of the
least
people.
by the SNP,
Yeah.
which has 50 or
Exactly.
so amendments, it says, which will be hard to squeeze into a 1 or 2 line bill, is the suggestion.
Yeah, and also I have a favourite amendment, which I think Chukramoon has mentioned, which I think would be brilliant if he does it, which is to amend the bill that says, OK, we'll have Brexit, but the government will have to agree to 350 million a week going to the NHS. Now, if that amendment gets tabled, who would vote against it? Because all the Remainers want to screw the government, Labour want to screw the government on the NHS, so do the SNP. All of that rump would vote for that amendment. All the troublesome Tories would vote for it. And you've got to remember, Theresa May has a majority of 12. She needs 6 people to wobble at any one point to put her in peril. So I think there's potential for mischief, that sort of amendment. But in the end, this will of the people stuff, which is one of these awful cliches that we're going to be battered about the face with like a stinking fish over the next months and years, does mean we're going to get a vote for Article 50, aren't we? No one's going to stand in the way of that in the end.
You know, if anything, this whole legal challenge has been a bit inconvenient for Theresa May. But as you say, she's managed to buy her a bit of time. She made a very good speech last week, which has changed lots of people's attitudes. I do think so. But it's inconvenient, but it could have been a lot worse. The whole idea that the nations aren't going to have a veto is definitely playing in her favour. And I think what this also shows is that how badly worded the 2015 Referendum Act was, which is another reason of how badly David Cameron let this country down.
Yeah,
and people
So
don't
how
talk
would you
enough
have
about this.
the only thing you could have done is had 3 choices, in, out or in the single
Yes.
market. That was the suggestion, which
referendum-
was ruled out very early in
Yes,
the
but
process.
the Referendum Act didn't specify what would happen when Article
That's
50 was
exactly
triggered. And if it had
because
specified
none
properly,
of the parties
we wouldn't have
agreed
had
what
this.
would happen after Article 50.
No, but it should have been drafted so that there was clarity of if A, then this path, if B, then this path.
They could have had this debate. One actually would suspect intelligent people, strategic people, would say we are going to plan ahead of the time for this because
But there was
we're having
so
a
much
debate.
arrogance. There was so much arrogance
that we
and
weren't going to
it's
Brexit.
this David
Yeah, but
Cameron
you can
arrogance,
imagine if
and
the
then
plans were leaked. It
I've
would
heard
have
that
been a
argument, which
disaster.
is kind of true. But even if you don't get to that point, when they're drafting the bills, well, you can't feel. The MPs are to blame for this. They were there when they all voted
Absolutely.
for this referendum act.
And they could have asked questions. And this is the other thing, that this legal challenge was brought about by Gina Miller, a private citizen. Where is the Labour Party in opposing and holding the government to account and saying, hold on, this might not be legal? It has taken a private citizen
After the event
to challenge the
Because
government
Jeremy
and not the
Corbyn's
opposition.
not sure about the European Union.
Because Labour are in disarray and they're
Labour are
not
screwed
very
on it.
good at opposing. And this is a very, I say this till I'm blue in the face, it is bad for this country that we don't have a proper opposition and that it's left up to private citizens to say, hold on, let's make sure we're doing this the right way. This is a good thing that we've been through this process. It's a very British thing. We are doing things the right way, we're doing things through our courts. Liz Truss today put out a statement saying how much they respect the judge's decision right at the same time as the verdict, which was, actually, given the uproar at the last verdict. The Daily Mail isn't in yet. I'd quite like to see what the Daily Mail makes of all of this.
Yes, I'm sure. So, The Guardian, rebel Tories demand a say on Brexit as PM loses the court fight. We even had people like Douglas Carswell today saying it's time to work out who's appointing these judges. It's really time to take a step back and work out the Supreme Court. It's not been around very long.
I think that's such a dead argument, really, because what have the judges done in the end? The judges have simply said, we live in a parliamentary democracy, major constitutional decision should go to Parliament. And it's been forestalled by the Prime Minister himself, who has agreed in advance of this decision to put it to a vote. Everyone is kind of refusing to accept that more or less most people agree that Parliament need to have its say. What this is about, the Guardian headline is about, is the level to which that say is anything more than rubber stamping let's have a bit of Brexit, which is what the government wants it to be. The rebel Tories, the Remainers, want it to be a bit more detail, a bit more intricate, to try and see what the relationship with the single market will be like.
That's what you wanted to see.
Oh, gosh. You see? Now it's MP. So at least, they're blaming MPs and not the judges this time.
Blaming everybody, I think.
In fairness to the Mail, there are some MPs, Liberal Democrats being one of them,
Yeah, but they don't have a lot of MPs.
No, but the SNP have some, there are some Labour, there are some Tories. That is not an inaccurate headline. There are some MPs who wish to stop Brexit because they don't fundamentally agree with it. Now,
or they want to support their constituents who voted to stay in the European Union, perhaps.
But again, we're in this very difficult position when it was a 48-52 vote. where there was no planning as to how it would then manifest itself. So everyone could legitimately say, I'm sticking up for the Remain voting people in my constituency, I don't want Brexit. Yeah. Just as you could say, I'm sticking up for the majority of people in this country who did vote Brexit. And that's effectively the rhetorical row that we're having.
Is it time for papers like the Daily Mail to just leave Gina alone? Triumphant, but what's the truth about Gina's law degree?
I think it is. I mean, people have mixed feelings about her. I think she has done something brave, put herself out on a limb. It's not easy to be the target for all of this ire. But I think we also need to... It's so funny how today the coverage of this and her speech outside the High Court all being about, this is not about politics, it's about the rule of law being followed. And yes, but that's not the spirit in which all of this was launched.
On either side.
It was launched in such a way as to give any MPs who wanted to thwart Brexit a chance to have their say, even though that's not necessarily going to happen. Yeah, I really think people should leave her alone. I mean, there have been so many personal digs at her. It's always consistently personal digs at her, rather than what she's tried to do. And
that's the modern world for you. I think that Gina Miller, it's very difficult.
Do you know what? It's the modern world, but I have to say this: it happens more with women than with men.
I'm totally agree with that.
I think she is a tough lady to have weathered the storm, and hats off to her.
I think with her, I think that's right. But I think not the Mail necessarily doing that, but just people on social media. People in the public eye get horrific abuse. Women get more abuse than men. And it's the modern malaise. It's just a fact of life. And we can pretend, we can say all of these things are isolated, and we can talk about Gina Miller as if that is somehow an extraordinary example. This is the modern world. The modern world is a place where people appear in public and other people talk aggressively about them, they make threats about them, they talk horrifically about them. And that is kind of humanity 2017. And unfortunately, short of changing people's opinions and behaviour through mass hypnosis, that is what the world will be like from now on. And there's no point there's almost nothing one can do about it.
Tell Donald Trump he might make it happen.
Yeah, with his tiny little hands.
Yeah, Financial Times going to May races to keep Brexit plan on track after defeat in top court. The question is how quickly she can race through, how quickly, as the Eye puts it, she can fast track her bill through Parliament.
And this depends on exactly the extent to which MPs find profitable use of their time to make amendments. Are they going to make amendments for the sake of devilment? Are they going to make amendments that tries to give specificity to our relationship with the single market? Or actually, are they going to end up doing a bit of that and the government saying, we're just going to press ahead and we'll report back to you? What Theresa May desperately hopes for is that the momentum that she has created, in fairness to her, and her speech last week made this, what used to be a looming mountain, a kind of annoying pimple. And now she's sort of can still carry the way through this.
OK. Plenty more still to come. We will talk about Trump and what he's been up to, and also why female MPs say they are dressing down for sexist bosses. Back with that in just a moment. Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview. With me this evening, the editor of the Times Literary Supplement, Stig Abel, and the documentary maker and journalist, Jenny Kleeman. We've done Brexit, unparked it, now on to Trump.
Brexit's over, it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, Donald Trump is promising jobs and the use of American steel. The cost of that, though, is putting very large pipelines down to the angst of environmentalists.
Yes, so there are these two pipeline projects, the Keystone Pipeline and the Dakota Access Pipeline, which have been in the pipeline for quite a while now. I know, this is terrible. Terrible, sorry, I apologise. And Obama put the kibosh on both of them for, well, Keystone for environmental reasons. The Dakota Access Pipeline runs through a Sioux area, and there have been fears among Native Americans that their water is going to be polluted by this pipeline. Really big protests, people protesting in the freezing cold, camping out there. And the protests were seen to be successful, and there was a lot of celebration only, I think, a couple of months ago. And then now, as soon as Trump comes in, he says, no, we're going to, as long as the steel is American, it's going to create lots of jobs, 25,000 jobs. I don't know where he's got this figure from. This, like everything else that he's done so far, is symbolic. It's massively symbolic. It shows that he's not an environmentalist. He's anti-environmental. He's anti-liberal causes like, protecting the rights of Native Americans in their own lands. So in one respect, it's very symbolic, but in another respect, it is about supporting oil companies, because it would be very good for oil companies that these oil pipelines are running across vast swathes of the US. So I guess there's nothing surprising about this. He's not a liberal. He doesn't necessarily... What's funny, I was thinking about this, America first, but which America? Because arguably the Native Americans were there first, but certainly they are not going to be, put first in all of this.
It's almost as if he doesn't care about ethnic minorities or the environment, isn't it?
What are you suggesting?
I know, who
but you've
knew?
got a theory about this, or there is a theory about this and what we've seen over the last weekend.
What we've seen over the last weekend is insanity. It's very hard to try and rationalise why a man who's the most powerful man in the world would start talking in the way he has done about inauguration crowds or about all the other things he's obsessed about. He's either a very thin-skinned narcissist, which I think is almost certainly true, but there's this thing called gaslighting I talked about at the weekend. Gaslighting, it's this theory that you can make people doubt the evidence of their eyes and ears. They will no longer trust the media like CNN. They'll no longer trust pictures and documents and facts because Trump can produce his own alternative facts. And in a sense, it's quite funny when he does it with inauguration footage. It's quite funny when he talks about the ratings of TV shows, because you say, well, it's just Trump being Trump. But if he establishes to 30% of America, which is his constituency, that you can't trust facts and figures, you can't trust reality, you can't trust the things you can see and hear with your own eyes and ears, when he screws up on the economy in a year's time, when he screws up on the diplomatic stage, he'll say, I told you, you can't trust in this stuff.
What have we heard today? We've heard that steel workers are going to get priority in America.
Yeah, exactly.
And people around the world will be going, I wish my leader was doing
and it's
that.
simple, and who's to say, actually, that form of protectionism, very narrowly,
Yes.
is the worst thing in the world? It probably isn't. There's an argument for trying to make use
There's an argument
of
for Britain doing that post-Brexit, no?
Well, it's very hard to be protectionist if you're trying to be a global trading nation again.
That is a good point.
And I think that's brilliant that, when Michael Gove goes out on bended knee and says, oh, please, we'll be at the front of the queue, and Theresa May's heading off to Washington.
But there is a buy-British element, that could be pushed again.
It's fascinating. If we're going to live in
support your farmers,
if we're going to go and try and
be.
get a preferential trade deal with America, and the president has literally just tweeted, I'm going to buy American and only use American
America
resources.
first. America first.
It's not Britain first, is it?
And he didn't say Britain was going to be at the front of the queue. Michael Gove is a terrible interviewer because he should have pressed him on that. He said, is Britain going to be on the front of the queue? And Trump said, I think you're doing great, which is not an answer to that question.
We've only got 30 seconds left. We'll have to ditch the other story, which we were going to talk about GPs drawing up charging plans. We'll do that next time, and do this last story, which we did say we were going to do, which is down the bottom.
Yes, so basically, MPs, there's been a parliamentary inquiry into women having to wear high heels and dye their hair blonde for work, and there's long-term damage that can be caused by wearing high heels for long periods in the workplace, blah, blah, blah.
Has anyone ever made either of you dye your hair or wear high heels?
No, but I've been told that people can't be news anchors if they have curly hair because it interferes with the blue screens and looks untidy. So I would be, unless I straighten my hair.
Today? Anyway,
You've all got straight hair, you lot.
I think you've both got lovely hair.
Oh, thank you, Stig. I think your hair's lovely too.
on that note, it's time to say goodnight. For now.
For now.
We will see you at 11:30. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Yes. You
We
can explain that story more.
didn't do a song.